Kevin Bryant. Oh. So we've got Kevin Bryant from the New Zealand Vet Association, and I think Kevin's going to talk to us about the problems with having enough rural vets. So Kevin, I'll hand it over to you, and we'll, if you'd like to speak for however long you like to speak, and then people can put their questions in over the chat, and we'll see how we go.
Awesome. Yeah, so I haven't got slides to share with you or anything, but I guess the what I'd like to share with you is the discussions we've been having with the government and officials around the impact that COVID has created on our rural veterinarians. And essentially, what we've found is that there's always been a shortage of veterinarians in New Zealand, but we've always filled that hole from overseas. And referring to the Veterinary Council registration data, every year around 200 to 250 veterinarians get registered from overseas with the Vet Council. So that's sort of the size of the hole that's always been there. And obviously with the borders closing, that immediately impacted us. And I guess that we've been talking to our members a lot, and as recently as earlier this week, I'm getting messages through that we're about to hit crisis point. And I guess the challenge that we've got is that veterinarians are required under the code of conduct under which they're operating to support animals, and if an emergency presents itself, they have to attend to it. And as people, even if it's not an emergency, they try and attend to it. So what's been happening is the shortage of vets has meant a lot of our clinics are understaffed. We've got people that are working long hours, not getting days off, and hitting the wall and getting stressed. So the impact is we've got a bunch of vets who are in a very fragile state because they're really putting in some huge hours because they're trying to support their clients. And we've got the risk of it impacting on animal welfare and from an NZ Inc. perspective on our biosecurity and food safety standing in the export world, because I believe we're approaching the point where veterinarians are simply not going to be able to meet all the requirements of their clients and the timeframes their clients are looking for, which is then going to transpose into stress on farmers because they can't get the support they need, and it's getting quite dire. So that's our big concern. We've not put out there that we're looking down the barrel of an animal welfare crisis, because, as I say, people have been doing everything possible to make sure that doesn't happen. Right now we have a human crisis in the form of the well-being of our veterinarians, and we're starting to see situations where veterinarians are taking time out, not necessarily leaving the profession, but just taking time out to recharge batteries, and that's making the hole bigger. To exacerbate the problem, the recent announcement by the Australian government to remove all of the barriers, all the visa barriers to veterinarians entering Australia, has quite literally opened the floodgates. So if you're a vet in the Northern Hemisphere and you're planning to spend a bit of time in the Southern Hemisphere in Australia or New Zealand, getting some experience in a different part of the profession and life, now it's a very easy decision to just go to Australia because there's no barriers, and we have quite a few criteria that people have to meet to achieve our visa requirements. So we were successful in discussions with the government that before Christmas last year, the decision was taken by Immigration New Zealand and MB that that veterinarians were critical workers, which was a pleasing announcement. We've got a challenge in that the visa requirements for critical workers require, among other things, veterinarians to be paid $106,000 salary. And a lot of these veterinarians that have been imported from overseas are young, less than 5 years experience, because they're single, they're prepared to travel in this COVID ravaged world. There's less pressures as there would be on a veterinarian who's got a family, and they typically are not paid $106,000 in salary. Their total REM may be over that, but unfortunately, that's not the way Immigration New Zealand want to look at it. So we've got some real challenges, and really the call that we're putting up to government is to follow the Australian government example, and remove those barriers so that we can actually maintain our quality of support in the industry. Because what I think is going to happen is some clients are going to find they have to wait for services. Other clients may in fact be turned away because people's books are full, given the number of staff they've got on their team. So I might pause there if there's some questions.
Right, can you see that one, Kevin, there from Sarah? How much is this going to impact on our food safety? Is there going to be heightened risks of food poisoning outbreaks with this vet shortage?
Yeah, look, we don't want to be scaremongers, but with the increase in zoonotic diseases going on around the world, and I think I can say COVID's one of them. I'm not a vet myself, so got to be a bit careful. But with the increase in zoonotic diseases, yes, there is a risk. And what we've got when we've got vets on farm, we've got a lot of surveillance going on as part of the process of supporting the farmer, which is our first line of defence. So that if that support is not there, there is a potential that product may be moving into the supply chain, which does compromise food safety. And I'm being a bit cautious in saying this. I'm certainly not saying it will happen, because obviously vets working with farmers are acutely aware of the importance of that. So, but it's a risk. And I think the answer really is my advice to a farmer who doesn't enjoy an ongoing relationship with their vet, their local vet, where they're part of the team doing the animal health planning on the farm, etc. You need to form a relationship with a local vet so that you can actually ensure that you've got that side of things covered.
Kevin, could I ask what, given that it takes 5 years to train a vet, I guess even doubling the numbers of vets and training isn't going to solve your problem in the next 5 years. What about, has there been thought put into, or is there any way that some of the kind of vet techs or animal technicians could step up and be, with some short training, sort of bridge a few of the gaps and some of the on-farm activities that vets currently do?
Yeah, absolutely, Jackie. And there's a multiple a set of multiple responses to the problem. And the long-term issue is more places in Massey, and there's a conversation going on between Massey and the Tertiary Education Commission on that, which we're actively supporting. But that, as you say, that's a longer-term solution. Another one of those solutions is, as you've explained, is if we're actually able to get more of our allied veterinary professionals, the techs, the vet techs, doing more work so that the vets are actually focusing on doing only those things that only vets can do. That's part of the solution, and there's quite a bit of work going on at the moment to creating qualifications for allied veterinary professionals, so that their skill sets can be recognised, and there's also quite a bit of work going on to set up a regulatory body under the umbrella of the or connected to the Vet Council, so that we can have people recognised formally with having skills, that they become part of a regulated body, and that gives confidence to farmers that the people doing the job know what they're doing, which means they can do more. So some of this work can be activated and is being done right now, and some of it will take a little bit of time, but that's also part of the solution. I think the other thing that we're doing some work on is to put together some short, sharp refresher courses that will enable people who might want to return back to the profession to upskill and get themselves current again. And there is also a conversation going on. We've got a bunch of vets from countries that are not recognised by New Zealand, who are living and working in New Zealand in allied fields. And what the British Veterinary Association have done is created what's called a restricted license to operate through their regulatory body, and that's another opportunity. So people and there's a group of people who are in discussion with the Vet Council who fit this category, who want to actually return to doing vet-related work. So the option of putting together a restricted license to operate, which manages that component that is not deemed by the council to be up to standard for New Zealand, is addressed, but people can actually operate at similar to a vet tech. So it's an opportunity to increase the number of people working in that space. So there's quite a few things that can be done there, and all of them have to be done.
Do you, well, no one else has asked a question, so I'll just plow on with another one I was thinking of. When I have written stories about people working on dairy farms, a lot of the migrants who've come in as dairy farm workers have veterinary qualifications, it seems to me.
Correct.
Have you done any work looking on why those people have come in and gone the farming route rather than the vet route? Is it to do with the visa, or is it to do with the ability to stay in the country, own a business, own your own farming business, or what's your sort of feeling in that space?
I would hazard a guess. I don't know, but I'd hazard a guess that the main reason is because they don't meet the criteria as set out by the Veterinary Council to practice in New Zealand. So they're forced into another career pathway. And I noticed, interestingly, one of those people that you described won an award at the Dairy Industry Awards. Yeah,
there were quite a number in the awards, or I think there were that are trained in vets. Is that what percentage of how many countries are their qualifications not recognised in New Zealand? Like, where do you have to come from to be recognised?
It's easier to talk about the ones that are recognised, and it's really the Commonwealth countries, the States, some of the European countries, South Africa. It's not a huge list.
No.
So that's something that the Vet Council are looking into in terms of what might be possible, but I guess also their role as the protector of the public. They need to maintain their standards, and so they've got these requirements for good reason.
Are they too tough in some areas?
I don't know. I don't think so, because it's been around for such a long time. But I think the wriggle room, I think, is around these restricted licenses to operate as a start point, and putting in place shorter, more focused, gap filling training where there are gaps. So I'd imagine that a vet coming in from another country would actually fit a lot of the criteria, but there'll be some gaps. You know, for example, familiarity with New Zealand farming systems, for example. There'd be some gaps that would have to be filled, but you know, if we can actually put in place some gap filling training, that might create a great opportunity for a lot of people.
Yeah, that seems to be a no-brainer, doesn't it? Now, Linda Gray has asked a question, is this shortage in vets reflected in the number of students training to be vets? How many typically graduate every year, and how has this changed over time?
Yeah, so there's about 120 graduates coming out this year. 20 of them are from overseas because they're already in the country. So it's about 100. It used to be 80 a year were graduating. New Zealand vets. It's just recently gone up to 100. I understand that the applications are in excess of 300 every year, so there's no shortage of people wanting to become vets. But that's limited by funding availability through the Tertiary Education Commission. That's the limiting factor.
Right.
Does that answer that question, Linda?
She's possibly muted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. She says yes. Yeah. That's good. So I guess you're now going back to government and arguing the points of the visa entry. Do you sense that they will come to the party in terms of allowing more in from overseas, or is that part of the wider move away, you know, to change the immigration policies? Although you'd think vets wouldn't be in the lower skilled category, would they?
No, they're not. I think, you know, and those that are experienced are obviously you know, well over the minimum requirement as laid down in the critical worker category. So there's not a problem there. I think it's these more junior vets, and you know, I think that as we've explained in our conversations, that the veterinary profession is no different to any other industry. That's a pyramid structure where you've got a large number of, if we can call them general practitioner vets at the bottom of the pyramid, who have got a range of experiences. And then as you move up the pyramid, people move into more specialised roles. They move into industry roles. They work for MPI, and moving up to the top of the pyramid where they become researchers and specialists. So the volume, if you like, of people tend to be at that less experienced level. And that's just a factor of the structure of the industry, really, and that's where we've got our challenge. So there's a lot of work that we're undertaking, and we're working closely with MPI on this in terms of the profession as a whole is actually developing a lot of long-term thinking around managing this challenge itself, and making sure that we've got a sustainable industry, a sustainable profession, but it takes time, and we've all been caught short with the impact of COVID. So really what we're saying to government is help us out in the immediate term. You know, we've got very valid reasons, I think, for pursuing this. I think from the government's perspective, so does every other industry that is short of people. They're knocking on the same challenges. So, you know, of course, we think the vets are more important than the Wiggles and the Lion King entertainers and that sort of thing. But that's just our opinion. So I think that what we are trying to impress is the if we can't address this immediate problem, we could be looking at some really serious issues in terms of our standing as a quality exporter. That's really one of the big concerns. And you know, when I had an example with one vet clinic in a rural area where they normally have 5 vets, they've only got 2, and these 2 vets had worked for 4 months, 7 days a week, trying to stay on top of supporting their clients. And that's not healthy for anybody.
No. Kevin, is this just a rural vet problem, or is it a shortage across the board? And what is the process at the end of vet school? Do graduates just decide they want to be small animal or large animal, or do they all have to go through a rural, you know, placement or whatever to before they decide to come back to the city, or how does that split work?
Yeah, so in response to the first question, Jackie, it's right across the board. We've got vet clinics in urban areas actually shutting because of lack of staff. So it's right across the board. And in terms of where students end up, so as they go through their training, they do choose to specialise at a certain point. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly which year it is. It could be the 4th year. They choose, am I going to go down the large animal or the companion animal route, or am I going to go for equine? So I think they make a decision during their training. And I guess, you know, we're fortunate in New Zealand. It's a small number, but it helps. We've got the rural bonding scheme that MPI have got running, which financially supports graduates into rural areas. And that's 30 places a year, which I understand is filled every year. You know, it's not all doom and gloom, and I guess but we do have an immediate problem, and you know, we're regularly hearing stories where vet clinics are operating at sort of anywhere down to as low as 60 or 70% of their normal staffing levels. And if you just do the math on that, that's going to have a huge impact on people. And you know, one of the indicators we've got is we offer an employee assistance program for vets through VETA. And what we've been noticing over the last year is the number of people seeking support through that channel is increasing. There was a big increase during COVID over what was happening before that. It's actually gone up since COVID, and the most common causes for people seeking support is anxiety and workplace stress. And their workplace stress is directly related to the working hours. So those are the things that are starting to come through. So there's, yeah, I mean, there's just so much quality information out there that is explaining that we've got a problem. And to be fair, government do understand what the problem is. You know, we've got a very understanding minister, the Minister of Agriculture, in this space, and I guess that what he's saying is that he's got to compete with every other industry in the country who's beating the same drum.
Yes,
we've got our own production industries in the same plight. So you know, it's a tough gig.
Now, Kevin, there's been a couple more questions. Lee has asked, she's wondering if you, and I think you just alluded to this, but maybe you could put a little bit more detail around it. Wondering if your association has done any thinking around helping your members work with farmers who might be struggling with depression and stress, etc. So it's maybe not so much your members who are depressed and stressed, but
yes, their clients,
when they see it on farm.
Yeah, so this is, I don't know if I'm qualified to answer this particularly well, because often our members are the person that sits around the kitchen table with being someone to talk to with farmer clients, and that happens a lot. So they're there on a personal level where that relationship exists. I think also there's quite a lot of support through the industry for farmers. So we connected up to the likes of the Rural Trust and that sort of thing, so that if people are struggling, we're trying to support them in terms of getting access to support and that sort of thing. So, but it tends to be more of a I guess we've put a huge amount of effort into providing wellbeing support for members, which they are able to, a lot of it they can actually share with their clients if it will help them. So I think I've got to say we've been very focused on trying to give our members as much support as possible, and because we just don't know about the relationship they have with all their individual clients. So, and there are those farmer organisations who are doing a lot of work in that space, supporting farmers. So we're there as a supporter, but directly connecting to farmers, it's really through our vets who are on farm.
Yep. And Linda's asked, so there are long-term plans, but how's the vet industry going to get on in the meantime? Have you got an action plan? She says, I realise it's probably not as easy as that, but I'm asking the question anyway.
Yeah, I wish I had that
Tough
silver bullet. It's really tough, and I think we're going to be forced into supporting some self-preservation plans. So in terms of working with the council to make it okay for farmers for veterinarians to actually say, I can't take this job on. I think we're going to have to support our vets, and our vets are very responsive to people. If I go to my GP, if I ring my GP up and say I've got something wrong with me, I want to come and see you, they say I can fit you in next Monday. Vets tend to say I'll be there in an hour. And we might find that we have to support them to actually be a little bit like the GP and say, I can't fit you into next week. And that's not going to be ideal for anybody. But I think we're going to be forced into supporting people, supporting our vets into self-preservation so that they can actually weather the storm as we try and address some of these longer-term issues. So we're putting a lot of effort into getting some cut through on through the immigration channel in the immediate term. We're in a really busy time of year at the moment for farming, so it's biting really. It's going to bite really badly from now.
I see that the dairy industry were talking to the select committee about immigration. Have you also been engaging in that way? And do you think that, you only said the minister's receptive, what about the immigration minister and the department?
Yeah, so we've got a bit of work to do there, and I think that we are actually to date we've been through our minister, through Minister of Agriculture, we've been actually connecting up with the immigration department, and that's been working reasonably well. I mean, we were able to achieve an exemption for 30 places last year, and I know that's a drop in the bucket when you're down. We did a survey of our members, and there was 120. This was around January. There was 124 specific jobs that people could not fill from inside New Zealand, and we, so the 30 helps, but it's nowhere near enough. So we have enjoyed some success, and we believe that with ongoing engagement through our minister to the Minister of Immigration, that we will try and achieve that next win really. I think the other thing is that when we're talking about veterinarians, it's a little bit different to bringing in a boatload of fishermen who will land in the country at one time. It's a staggered role, so the impact on managed isolation is very manageable when you're talking about vets coming in, because it's a bit of a pipeline that happens as people need to close off affairs in their home country and get here. So we can manage that really well in collaboration with the immigration department. So we don't stress on that part of the system.
Can I just ask one more, Kevin? Sorry. I was just going to say, is technology able to be an enabler in your sector? I'm not sure how much of this you do, but you know how doctors now, you can ring up and if you can't see your doctor, at least you can have a phone call with them or a Zoom call. And the other thing I was wondering about is sort of when it comes to a vet developing a seasonal animal health plan or you know, even an annual animal health plan, have there been templates developed and you know, the use of AI to help farmers through the process so they can do more of their, you know, do some of that themselves, but maybe spreading of the vets a bit further, spreading their knowledge, not just like the one-on-one relationship, but one to many? Have those sort of things been developing in the background?
Yeah, I think the notion of triaging was certainly pushed into the front lobe during COVID, during lockdown.
Yeah.
So I think that, and I'm going to be hedging what I'm saying here because I'm not a vet, but what I'm told is it's really challenging in a lot of cases to do a triage diagnosis. Because of the environment that the animal's in and the context behind it. But if the farmer's known to the vet, that possibility does exist on some situations. And certainly we've been working closely with industry organisations around things like animal health plans and that sort of thing. So we're all in that together, supporting farmers, and it's definitely a case of those things that can be done. You know, quite often it's a bit of front end support, but then the farm can manage it from then.
Yep.
So that's what we're sort of encouraging is don't leave it till you've got an emergency to call your vet. Get your vet involved in the planning stage, and then you might not need to call them during the year, apart from scheduled visits and that sort of thing. So I think definitely we're trying to actually make people as self-sufficient as they can be, but get the right type of input at the right time.
Cool. Okay, well that's interesting. I mean, I guess it's the technology things pop up now and then, don't they? And if you've got a fertile environment for innovation, that's often when it pops up. So I guess some of your members will be giving this a lot of thought.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think you know we've all learned that much as some people hate it, we've all learned that it's actually okay to talk on Zoom in a lot of cases, just like we're doing today. Whereas a couple of years ago, it was not really that common.
No, and I guess if farmers are set up on farm, you know, they can be doing some of the, not the diagnostics, but the gathering the background information if they've got a problem. Correct. I guess, but it's not quite the same as having the vet there, is it? Oh, no. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Kevin. That was really interesting. I think it was great to have you to outline the problem and you know, give us some ideas of what you're doing. So thank you very much for your time. I guess we'd all be really interested to watch this space to see what happens next.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a real challenging space at the moment, but we're all working hard together on trying to address the problems. And there's a lot of good people, as I say, working closely together to come up with short, medium, and long-term responses.
Yeah. And I'll leave the last word to Linda, who said, thanks, Kevin. Depressing yet enlightening. So that'll give you a chuckle for the afternoon. You've been depressing yet enlightening.
We refuse to be depressed.
Good. That's